Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Masochists Marathon. I have no idea why I just did the intro like that, but hey, let's just leave it in there. So, welcome to another episode. Episode 31, I believe we are now on. Basically, yes, I think we'll get straight into the theme of this episode, and it is just heavy editing. Lately, I've wanted to really get into the thick of Factorio late game with this, get onto Mega Factory stuff. So, for some reason, I spent all week on this episode. I think there's like something stupid like 3.5 hours of gameplay crammed into 20 minutes and 25 seconds. But yes, we start the episode off laying out automated construction of all things for the reactor power, all that stuff. I'm going to avoid a particular word for no particular reason. But yeah, we get that all laid out. I set the limits very low on this because I only want the factory to be making it if we actually need to build it. I don't really need that many buffered up in the logistics system, really, unless I'm going to be making it somewhere else and have to carry loads off, which I don't think is going to happen. So I get all this laid out because basically we're going to be expanding the reactor power area to be a lot bigger to get the full bonus, I've forgotten the words, adjacency bonus for 4 reactors, which is what this layout is really for. It's only half of it at the moment. So we get the rest of these turbines all laid out so that we can blueprint it, steal it, and get it moved over. I manually made the reactors just because of simply how absurdly expensive they are. There's no point in getting those done in the factory. I just get the heat exchangers, and turbines done by the factory. We get that all blueprinted and reversed. I'm not even sure I needed to reverse it. I think I kind of did for the heat pipes, but not really that necessary. But yeah, this is pretty easy to lay out. We've already got the belts and everything in a manner that accommodates for 4 reactors, so we get that all done. Basically, the reason why I'm doing this is A, because we need more power, and I'm not going to use steam, and we're very close to completing the Kovarax enrichment process research, so that's what we're going to be working towards at the start of the episode. But because it's going along at such a snail's pace, I do edit a lot of this, skipping forward. We were collecting a load of resources for these underground pipes here, and I really don't like what I have to do here. There is probably a better way to do it, but for the sake of symmetricalness or whatever, I move that pole over there. So they're not actually connecting. They're kind of going through those medium poles, which is kind of sacrilege, really. But we get all these laid out with the help of some bots. So we've got enough water coming through. And I do have to extend the heat pipes here because they weren't in the blueprint, because I disconnected those for other reasons that I don't really need to explain. But we get all the inserters done so that we can get those reactors heating up. Still plenty of 365 in that chest there, so I'm really not worried about running out of 365 in the short period being in inverted commas there, until we get the Kovarax enrichment process research completed. So we get these 2 rows down here all hooked up, and soon we will have copious amounts of power. So plenty of water coming through now, and that should all get there as soon as the factory finally finishes producing the heat exchangers and turbines. But yeah, as we skip forward, you can see the pending number of items required does start to drop. I did forget to do pipe production for those, so none have actually been made yet. It's just shifted the ones that I took up from the previous layout that was never completed. There is a biter base down here that suddenly popped up a bit too close, so we get that all cleaned up. I also wanted to move the production of concrete because I didn't like it being here. I wanted it to be somewhere more logical, so I come over and crudely stick a passive provider in at the iron station. I'm just doing that for now until logistics start unloading that for us. And I was going to move it down here, so I come and place it out, you know, like a normal person, and then I realised it needs water, and I'd have to go and get bots to barrel up water near somewhere, and that's not in the logistics anywhere. So I move it down here, and basically I haven't really moved it very far at all. I've like moved it maybe like 2 chunks down, so it's kind of closer to bots for bring the ore over. But yeah, really stupid idea there. I probably should have just left it and made it the logistics system where it was, which maybe needed a couple more roboports. But yeah, bit of a failed goal. Oh well, never mind. Next up, I wanted to lay out some processing of the used fuel cells because I noticed they've started to build up a little bit. I have a centrifuge. I come and try and do it. Realise the ability is not available yet, and I think, oh, it must be a part of the Kovarax enrichment research. I don't go and check it. It's just an assumption. But later, I realise miserably that that is not the case. Anyway, I just double check everything's laid out okay here. Just have a quick look at power to make sure there's no problems, because I want to just leave this now and leave the factory to produce it for me. Next up, we're just waiting for the electronic circuits train, and we just have a quick look at power just to try and keep a good eye on it. You know, we'll let the train unload, just checking everything's running okay with nuclear while we head up to electronics circuits outpost 1, because I wanted to come and do what I was meant to do last episode and extend some of these smelting columns to try and increase the production of electronic circuits. So we need to push these biters back now with a little bit more power coming from nuclear. Not much yet, but just a little bit, enough to make this a safe process. Anyway, we skip through all that because we've got a lot of heavy editing this episode, so we are skipping through a lot of things, but I do try and show all the most important stuff. Anyway, we're doubling up these rows so that we can now saturate a red belt. I do believe a red belt transports twice as much as a yellow, so I hope I've got this right, that this needs to be 24 long on each side, but we get that all laid out with a lot of help from the bots. And I also push out these defenses as well. It's nice this bit being pushed out because we're getting close to the rail line that heads north, so there's not many biters east or west of this area, so the attack should only really come from the north. But we make sure all these belts are upgraded as far as they kind of need to be, and I sort of rearrange the underground belts as well because they're kind of done a bit backwards. They don't really need to be wasting all that belt, and we might as well utilize them a little bit. So we got that done with a little glitch in the power there still from the lasers firing, but we get all this done. This should add half the old production of circuits on again. We're sort of increasing, we're doubling the size of half the smelters, if that makes sense. I might be talking complete gibberish. Anyway, I stare at these copper inputs for quite a while and I start faffing over them loads. I upgrade the circuit input to red, which is kind of a bit unnecessary. I probably just should have had 2 yellow, but I kind of just felt like doing this instead because I had so much red with me. But yeah, I do stare at these copper inputs quite a bit. I do ignore looking at it, and I check that all the smelters are running. I don't know why I upgrade these input bits here, because in theory a red belt should be able to feed all of them. I didn't really need to do those bits, but I do it anyway. I shift the copper mining column over 1 because it was irritating me, but I add a load more miners as well, trying not to get the copper and iron mixed up. What was the word I was trying to think of? Contaminated. We don't want to get them contaminated. We also have a bit of a tidy up for the iron mining as well because of the increased smelting. We're going to need more mining here as well. I should really just cover these completely, but I've never really bothered. Just so long as they're mining just enough, I'm happy. I'm not ready to go and cover the whole thing entirely, just because it's going to need more turrets and more miners, etc. Obviously, but we get all of this in as well to hopefully compensate for the increased smelting. I'll come and stick a red belt in here again where I probably could have just used a yellow, and by this point I've got loads of yellow on me, so yeah, I think I was just getting a bit red belt happy. I want to push these defenses out here as well more, but actually start to run out of medium poles. I need a bit of steel, so it's not like I can rob the copper from here. And we just come and extend the number of assemblers as well, because the red belts are now bringing in more materials than we are able to turn into circuits, so I may as well add more. I think add 2 more groups of assemblers as well. That's a total of 4 green electronic assemblers, which may not sound a lot, but at the marathon recipe setting, or the expensive recipe setting, sorry, it's not to do with the marathon, the electronic circuits require a huge amount of copper. Yeah, it's 5 copper wire assemblers to each electronic assembler, so ridiculous amount of copper. And speaking of copper, I come and make a really pig's ear of trying to balance this all out because it wasn't really feeding happily, or at least I think it might have been and I just didn't think it was. But yeah, we skip forward because I did spend a lot of time here, and we have the 2 double length smelting columns feeding into either side, and then 2 of the normal ones going into either side, so that should be equal in theory. It may not look perfectly equal, but yeah, it should be inputting perfectly equal on the 2. So anyway, we leave that all now because that's increased the amount of circuits coming through. That should be half again, I think, the amount of circuits coming through. So not amazing, but just, you know, it's better than what was coming in through before. There's a biter base here nice and close to the track that I want to come and take out, but because I have no medium poles, I use a substation. Anyway, back at the factory, on with the next job of the day. I'll leave this little bit in here because we get a nice little snake of delivery from the logistic robots. Obviously not a proper snake like before, but it still looks pretty cool. So I've also noticed some productivity science in the logistics system, which I stick in some labs. But yeah, that electronic circuits outpost, I am going to rebuild nice and neatly in the future, so don't worry about that mess. Now, we just put in a bit of belt there for the production science because last episode, or maybe the episode before, I took that out to get those electronic smelters. I'm pretty sure it was last episode to upgrade the electronics outpost, and I was stealing them from there. And I've realised why Kovacs Enrichment looks like it's been going along at such a poor snail's pace is because I, stole that bit of belt there to steal electronic smelters. So we haven't actually been producing any, and it's just my imagination thinking that it is moving just very slowly. So very annoying there, but we do finally get on with Kovacs. So that's been stopped since whatever point last episode. I probably edited the footage out as well, so you probably didn't even get to see it. I do a bit of balancing on the copper there because we don't see enough getting delivered to the advanced circuits now. We've got more electronic circuits coming in. I also add another 6 assemblers on the end there as well, just to make sure we're using as much as we can. But there are still gaps in the electronic circuits coming through. I stick another balancer in. Probably not really going to do anything. I also do upgrade it to red at some point, which is kind of a bit pointless, but sometimes you get carried away in Factorio and you just stare at stuff and decide to just upgrade it to red for no reason. And I have been stuck with yellow for an awfully long time, so it is kind of liberating being able to use red belts. Anyway, to pass the time waiting for Kovacs to finish, I come and do a bit of clearing, a bit of fixing of defenses. I also come and sort this out here because this has been a bit of a problem with this base being too close to the wall. But yeah, I probably would have had Kovacs finished already if I had never taken that bit of belt out last episode. It was a bit stupid, really. Anyway, we get some centrifuges made in the factory, again limiting the amount going into the logistic chest to a very low amount. In fact, I set it so the inserter doesn't actually work to begin with, so I can come along and just grab 2 for now. That's all I'm really going to need for Kovacs. I'll sort that inserter out later on when resources are a little bit or less scarce. I mean, they're never going to be completely scarce with these game settings, but yeah, it's a little bit better. Anyway, we're close to Kovacs now, or it looks like it's going so much faster than before because it's actually moving now, whereas before it just wasn't moving. I just thought it was. Anyway, I decided to start laying out the Kovacs enrichment area. Even though we haven't finished the research yet, I can still get the layout done. I've got a layout in my head. I completely forget it. I actually pause the game and go and have a look at it, and I realise that layout also incorporates beacons, so I think, hey, I might as well just do that anyway. Why not? There's no point laying this area out twice. Plus, it is my first time ever doing this, apart from on my test map, where I've worked the layout out, which was solely for this playthrough. Anyway, this layout, I quite like it. If anyone's got better ones, I'd be interested to see them. I just kind of like this one because it uses a little bit of green circuits on some belts, and I just kind of like it, but there's probably some way better ones because this one does have a bit of a throughput limitation at a certain point once. Basically, it's limited to the side loading of a blue belt. That's as fast as it can go. I mean, you can then just start building more columns, but do you really need that much Kovacs enrichment running? I don't know. I mean, I was able to run half of our nuclear setup with, with our current uranium refining area. So yeah, we should be perfectly fine as it goes, especially with the Kovacs enrichment process running. I mess around with this trying to get the RoboPort to cover it, and it doesn't quite line up, and then I just give up trying to get the RoboPorts to line up anyway. It doesn't really matter that much, and we just kind of just sit and wait for the process to be available. I realized that needs to be side-loaded there, which kind of didn't have to be in my layout. I laid it out in such a way it didn't need to be, so I need to go and have a look and see what I did there. But in the meantime, we also come and increase the amount of light oil cracking because we're not doing it fast enough. That is our bottleneck on the production of petroleum. So finally finished Kovacs enrichment after all this time. So I decided to do something red only and get it done nice and quickly. Next up, we line up some mining productivity. Mining productivity 4 because yeah, we're doing a lot of mining and it kind of makes sense to get that up as high as we can. It's not something I'm going to focus on, but yeah, it's a sort of a medium length piece of research, and we got our Kovacs enrichment all running, just making sure it works. I do forget to get the belt green circuit properties right to begin with, but yeah, it's all working now. I just hadn't set the values correctly. We also increased the storage of 238 as well. We may as well get that refining process running again. And I decided to double up the Kovacs enrichment as well, because why not? I don't think I space it out properly for beacons, but hey, I'll sort that out when we actually stick some beacons in. Because it's such a long process, it's nice to have a load of speed modules in there. I also correct the inserter providing the centrifuges. I said it's a 1 for now, so there'll always be one available in there. We don't want to build loads, but yeah, I can already see the spacing doesn't quite look right there, but it may be the substations just making the gap look a bit smaller between the two. But like I said, when we get to doing beacons, we'll sort that out later. I also realized that the process for processing used fuel cells isn't actually available either, so that's another 6,000 science packs, I think, to get that. So ridiculous amount. We will have to do it soon because they're going to really start to build up now. Anyway, next part of the episode, I want to get biter clearing to the 4.8 million patch of iron. I know we already set up another iron outpost last episode, so this part of the episode is very heavily edited. I think there's well over an hour's gameplay just in this final like 5 minutes of the episode, but this is a good direction to push in. So this is east of Iron 3, I think it was, the one that was in between those two lakes. Anyway, this is part of my future plan, which I'll go into in a sec. We finally have a look at the evolution factor, which is at 9.96 now. So yeah, we've not looked at that for a while. We also come to a still of where we're actually clearing to. I thought I'd make it clear. There's also an 8.6 million coal patch here. But yeah, my future plan to get biters cleared out, this is one of the bottlenecks. So we're going to have a wall going from that lake north of us down to the south. We're going to fill this in. So this is going to be part of the edge of the defenses here, but it is a huge amount of iron. So a lot of skipping here. We skip towards clearing around the patch here. So we pretty much achieved this now. We're nearly ready to put a station in. I just take a few of the bases out on the edges up until there. So next up, we need to go and get the file train, which we pretty much skipped to. But on our way down, I do notice that we're going to need some landfill. So on my way, I come and grab this chest here, which just still has a load of the stone that we collected here. So I can use that for the landfill. And while I'm here, I finally decide to get rid of the old copper station because it really doesn't need to be here. I was just lazy leaving file there for so long. Anyway, we jump ahead, we grab file, and we come and look at putting this bit in here, this junction. I put in the least amount of signals I need to just to get it working. I know I should be using rail signals. One day I'll do a full rail overhaul, but we've very nearly hit the iron train there just as the mining productivity is finished. And then I take a second trying to think about what I want to do next, and I really need to get the productivity modules on the go. A, for the armor, but B, just because we need it so badly. I know it's going to be expensive, but in the long run it's going to benefit us massively with these poor Richmond settings. So yeah, really want to get some of that in literally everywhere. It's just going to help us. The combination of productivity and speed modules is just going to make places like the electronic circuits area so much more productive. I need to come up with a proper layout for electronic circuits when in the expensive recipe mode for beacons, because at the moment I couldn't fit beacons in there, and I still don't know how I'm going to do it. It's going to be a very weird setup. Hopefully someone's got one out there. Maybe I'll come up with my own. I kind of want to come up with my own, but it's such a messy setup. Yeah, I could spend ages trying to come up with a good layout. Don't even know if beacons are going to fit in there properly. I really don't know. I need to have a proper play with it. Anyway, on with laying out the station. I really wanted to get the station in this episode, hence the very heavy editing. So let me know if this has been a good episode. There's a huge amount of editing. I just want to cram loads in. That was basically just the theme for this episode. If I'm missing out too much, do let me know, because I did say at the start of the series every episode would include absolutely everything I'm doing and there'd be no editing, and I've kind of gone completely back on that, like me here deciding to rebuild the station. It's actually kind of handy, so you don't have to watch me build the station twice. I can just skip through it. And yeah, I want it facing up this way because this is such a big iron patch. We're going to have a lot of trains coming here. So doing it this way means we've got a bit of queuing space for at least another train, maybe even two. Whilst lying out the miners, we do get a bit too close to that base. So we do have to go and push it back. I am going to have to get rid of the whole cluster though, because that is just going to grow back up to the edge of the defenses and just cause those infinite attacks. I can't remember the name I was using for them before, but you know what I mean. I've mentioned them pretty much every episode. Anyway, we get all the miners laid out and we get all this sorted. I'm not going to be able to do these heavily edited episodes every single time because this has taken me since like Sunday to do, and it's Thursday tomorrow. So yeah, I'm not going to be able to do it every episode, maybe every 3 or 4, but it does mean we get to advance the series a lot more rapidly. I kind of chopped the end of those miners off there just because I didn't have enough to do the whole patch. So I just chopped the end off so it's nice and neat. And I pretty much chuck every laser turret I have on me around the whole area nice and close, so I use the least number of laser turrets as well. And we get all these hooked up with red belts because I actually run out of yellow. But that's the next iron outpost pretty much done, iron outpost 7. But yeah, give us your feedback on the episode. Any kind of input on the series in general and the direction of what I do is always welcome from anyone. No idea what we're doing next episode. I haven't even had the time to think about it, but we shall see when I come to record. But with all that said and done, that's going to be all we have time for. I do hope you have enjoyed. Thank you so much for watching, and please do come and join us in the next episode. Bye-bye.